Perfect. But thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Evangeline. I'm the Alumni Engagement Officer. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to our CSE webinar titled Can Circular Economy Model Succeed in Developing Countries? Lessons from Namibia's Green Cycle Expo. I'm delighted to be joined by our speaker, Maria Ningeni Sheni Shimhanda. Um, Maria is the founder and lead consultant of Aligned Sustainability and Environmental Consultants, a female-led firm delivering environmental and social impact solutions across Namibia and Southern Africa. She is also the co-founder and project director of the Namibia ReThink Waste GreenCycle Expo, which brings together government, industries, and communities to advance circular economy solutions, green jobs, and climate action. Maria will be sharing insights from this pioneering initiative during today's webinar. I'd also like to let you know that Maria is a 2018 Commonwealth Scholar from Namibia. She completed her MSc in Environmental Management and Environmental Management from Coventry University, and she's currently pursuing a PhD in Natural Resource Management. She's a very busy person. I know it's been very hectic for her, so I'm really pleased that we could have her on board today to present her work. Now I'll hand over to Maria to begin with her webinar presentation.
Good afternoon to everyone. As Eva said, I'm Maria Shimhanda, or Maria Ningenishan Shimhanda. I want to thank the Commonwealth Scholarship for this opportunity today, not just for this opportunity and for the opportunity that they gave me in 2018. I would want to appreciate and thank every attendee that is here today to listen to me. I know most of you are coming from different time zones, so I appreciate your effort to be here today. So perhaps let me just greet you again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone here today. So today I'm here to present circular economy in the perspective of Namibia as a case study for a Green Cycle Expo that I've co-founded. So what do you expect from me today? Today I'm going to explain, or I'm going to share with you my journey through this initiative that is looking into circular economy. I'm not just going to share with you my success. I'm going to share with you, the challenges that I've gone through, what I've gone through, times where we had to cancel this event, but we, keep on going, as well as the lessons that I've learned. So before we start, perhaps I just want to ask you, a question. Have you ever had like an idea? You believed in yourself. You think this idea will have an impact. However, when you talk to people that are close to you, most of the time they'll be like, yeah, it's a good idea, but it might not work. Do you have money? Do you have this? That's how I felt when I had the idea, or when I have the idea of the Namibia ReThink Waste GreenCycle Expo. So, as Eva said, I was a Commonwealth Scholar from 2018. I've studied as a master's in sustainability and environmental management at the Student City at Coventry. So here is where I got the opportunity to learn, a broader perspective about circular economy model. Is where I learned about climate action. I learned about sustainability and how to create a synergy. When you are talking about environmental issues. So after completing my master's in the UK, I've co-founded an SME, or a consulting company, which is Aligned Sustainability and Environmental Consultant. So while I was starting with my business, I met a really great friend, who she owns, or she founded the company on strategic design. So her name is Toini Kauluma. So we ended up talking to each other, and we were sharing an office, We were sharing an office, and while we were at that small office of ours in Bindu, she asked, "Oh, Maria, you study with the Commonwealth. Do you have an idea that you are thinking about that if you implement it, it will have an actual impact, and at the same time, it will have it will put your consulting company on the map, or most of the stakeholders will look at you, because we know when you are a young person just co-founded a consulting company, you are finding already the big boys in the industry. So how do I position myself to be able to be seen? So I told my friend and said, just give me a few months, then I'll come back to you. So I was looking into environmental issues. I was looking into something that was never done before. So I've spoken to some of my close contact in the regional council, waste management expertise, and we talk about something that we are not really talking about in Namibia, which is circular economy and waste management. So 2 years ago, then I asked myself, what if perhaps I created a neutral platform where we can bring, people together? Okay, because I think not I think in early 2024, 2025, Namibia hold a world circular economy. However, that circular economy, world circular economy, what do you call it, circular economy dialogue. However, it was not inclusive. It was only for waste management expertise, people who understand circular economy. So I wanted, thinking about something that is neutral, something that is inclusive. So it felt like a crazy idea at the beginning. People has discouraged me, while at the same time, with that friend of mine that we share an office with, she was somebody who is from the background of strategic design, somebody who is from marketing, who could understand my idea in terms of environmental issues. And that is when I've also learned that when you are creating something big, when you are creating an initiative, you don't really need someone from your expert, somebody from where you have studied. You can get somebody who did marketing and still understand what you are doing and being able to join it. So looking at that and saying that I would want to create a platform where people can come together and talk about circular economy and waste management. So I've started looking into statistics. Okay, so me, because then I didn't really have a straight idea. I was just thinking about waste management. I'm talking about people coming together, because some of the early insight that came out from the stakeholders that I've conducted was stakeholders are working in silos. People are not talking to each other. The municipalities are dealing with waste alone, while the waste expertise are working on alone, while the private waste management expertise are working on its own. So that is one of a key challenge that came out. Number two was that Namibia has good policies on paper, but there were implementation issues, there were implementation gaps. That is where the idea stepped in. So I looked at statistics. Looking at statistics in terms of circular economy context, Namibia is ranked, or it has been ranked, in the top 10 cleanest countries in Africa. Perhaps 5 years ago, Namibia was number one. I think the capital city of Namibia, which is Vindu, was ranked number one topest cleanest city in Africa, which then was took over by Rwanda. So currently we are at number 9. We moved from 9 being number 1 to number 9. So while we are looking at that celebrated reputation, it also has some hidden issues, because it means Namibia looks at waste as a cleaning problem, then something that can create economic value. So Namibia's most recyclable materials are mostly sent to South Africa. These are a lot of materials that can be recycled, like plastic and glass, are being sent to South Africa for recycling. And this does not just mean that we are losing waste. We are actually losing recyclable materials that we could have recycled locally, which could have created, economic values and opportunities to this country. And most of the waste that is left in Namibia is buried in improper landfill and illegal dumping. So in Namibia, currently, we only have two proper, not even proper, somehow moderate landfill. The one in Walvis Bay, which is currently experiencing a lot of issues, and the one in the city of Windhoek. So While we are still talking about gaps, Namibia have also done a good work in terms of waste management and circular economy. Namibia has officially banned single-use plastic in national park, as well as we have received the first waste buyback center in Katutura, which was funded by the EU. So, as I've said before, Namibia has great environmental policies. However, there are implementation issues. Namibia is looking into transition into a circular economy, but still Namibia does not have an extended producer responsibility framework, even though it's proven to be working in countries like in South Africa. So it's like Namibia is it's somehow isolated in a small island, even though we are between countries where we are left behind. Namibia has so much lost economic opportunities, as well as we have a very clear awareness gap. You know, when I was talking initially to most of the stakeholders that were close to me, you know, you could see that they couldn't really link waste management, circular economy to most of the sectors that they are working on. So, as a result, we ended up asking ourselves, so we are not just losing waste, we are losing job opportunities. We are losing economic value. So I asked myself, what if we create now a platform where we will bring the government, we will bring communities, we are bringing the youth, we are bringing everybody an inclusive system or inclusive platform where we can talk about circular economy so that we can solve all these issues. So this question became the foundation of the expo. So the Namibia ReThink Waste GreenCycle Expo. So the GreenCycle Expo was held the first of its kind in Namibia. The first of its kind in Namibia was held on the 6th and 7th of November 2027 in the Wanderers Club Sport in Windhoek, which is a collaboration between my company, which is Align Sustainability and Environmental Consultant, as well as now my business partner or friend, Ms. Toini Kauluma, under her company, Creation Industrial Design. So, what is the Namibia ReThink Waste GreenCycle Expo? What were we thinking about? As I've said, this is the first national platform inclusive that is talking about waste and circular economy. We brought together the industry, the government, the innovators, the general public, so that we can partner for a climate resilient circular economy. As we already know, Namibia is one of those countries that are highly impacted by climate change. So that we can create a synergy between waste, climate adaptation, green infrastructure, and green financing, so that we can foster the cross-sector collaboration. As we can see, there's a very huge gap, so that we can drive policy action like the extended producer responsibility and promote sustainable financing for circular economy models. So this expo last year was held under the theme Unifying for a Circular Namibia, from waste challenges to sustainable opportunity. As we have said, we had so many issues. We had issues on technology, we had issues on policies, but we seen that even if we are being funded, for an example, by EU, they are giving us technologies, but people are not unified. We cannot work together. It will not work. So that's why we come up with the theme Unifying for a Circular Namibia, from waste challenges to sustainable opportunities. So this is a lived experience, okay? And I really appreciate having someone on the team who is a strategic designer. So we were thinking about what kind of logo should we come up with? How should it look like? Okay. So if you can look at the logo and look at my company logo, you can see most of the colors that, are talking to each other. And if you can see on the left, on the logo, you can see somebody picking up waste. That is me on the right, if I'm correct. So I was involved in waste in a cleaning campaign, cleaning waste watershed in a Kuvelai basin in the northern of Namibia, and that is where the idea of the expo design came from. So, what is the vision of our national platform? We wanted to innovate, to scale waste to value technologies, to foster collaboration across sector, to accelerate policy implementation, as well as to change behavior in terms of awareness and foster private partnership and financing. So our strategic objectives, we look at raise national awareness because we knew the community, the public didn't understand what circular economy. We bridge the policy implementation gap and empower those that are not included in the circular economy dialogues. So the Expo 2025 was held into three thematic pillars, which is circular solutions, policy acceleration, and inclusive systems. So this expo, I should highlight this. This expo, the first of the kind in this country, was implemented with zero public funding, okay, which proves how capable my team is. So we created an expo that is just beyond a conference. Okay, we have seen many expos, many conferences, bigger conferences, because we were creating an expo that is competing with bigger expos that are implemented by bigger companies like the mining expo. We have the oil and gas conferences. So for us, we wanted to create an expo that is just beyond a conference. You know, an expo that is having a networking session, an expo that is having panel discussion and technical presentation, so that we can give opportunities to the public and to both the government and private to come share their insight. This expo was free to the public. It was a free expo to anyone because we wanted everybody to come. We wanted the public to come, understand what circular economy was all about. This expo also consists of exhibition and demonstration. So if you can see, our exhibition consisted of 26 exhibitors, those that are from the plastic manufacturing companies, from government ministries, youth and NGOs, UNFPAs, and other stakeholders from the town council and municipal cities. So we had technical presentations from the tourism sector, like how can we integrate circular economy in the tourism sector. As we know, Namibia's tourism sector is nature-based, and most of them found in communal areas, what we call the community-based natural resource management, or the CBRNM. We had technical presentations from institutions like Bank of Windhoek, how they are financing green initiatives. So we also created a networking session because we realized, or from our early consultation, stakeholders were not working with each other. They were just holding their ideas for themselves. And stakeholders were also pointing fingers at each other. For an example, how can the director from plastic packaging talk to someone from the city of Windhoek municipality that deals with waste management? They always point fingers. You are the plastic packaging, you are the one who's causing problems. So we wanted to create that atmosphere so that people can be able to talk to each other, or the stakeholders can be able to talk to each other and link, the cross synergy or cross sector synergy that we are talking about. So we created 4 panel discussions. Okay, we have 4 panel discussions. A panel discussion 1 was now to create that comfortable relationship between waste management officials like City of Windhoek with manufacturing companies like plastic packaging, because as I've said, they were that thing of pointing fingers. Plastic packaging is the one who are producing plastic, they should pay. So we wanted them to be able to each other. As this panel discussion also looked at the plastic bag levy, which was in Namibia in 2025. We use it as a case study so that it can inform when Namibia is proposing for the extended producer responsibility framework, so that we do not repeat the same mistakes. We need to learn from what the plastic levy has done, its progress, what is its weakness, so that it can inform the extended producer responsibility recommendation. So through this panel discussion, the most important thing that came out is that the plastic levy plastic bag levy is making progress. However, it lacks transparency. Since it was implemented, there was no public reporting on where the environmental levy that is generated by this levy, where is it going? There's no clear link of funding of that money or that funding to circular economy initiatives or waste management initiatives. And these are some of the things that are addressed, for an example, by Mr. Elfas Kaorere from the city of Bindu, who is responsible for infrastructure of technical services for waste management at the city of Bindu. So we also had panel discussion too, which looked at cross-sector synergy, so that our point is we were creating an expo where we create information and data and people to understand circular economy, not just in one, but as across sector. How can somebody from the mining sector, how can I use waste from the mining sector if I'm from maybe the tourism sector? How can we work together so that we can exchange waste between, instead of sending it to South Africa, so that we can keep that economic value inside the country? So this is also one of an uncomfortable discussion that we should have had, because we wanted to have the mining sector in there and the energy sector and the oil and gas. However, to them it's a little bit uncomfortable because they are the ones that are producing more of the natural radioactive, waste and all this waste that some of them they have ongoing cases on environmental pollution and all that. However, mining companies like using uranium, they have sent us their in-kind contribution, but they have refused to be part of the discussion. But we hope, because these are the issues that we want to address, we hope this year they will join this panel discussion. So we also had one of the panel discussion that linked, because we wanted different sectors to understand how circular economy, how waste management is related to them, because that is where the awareness gap was. So this panel discussion was looking at how we should not just look at waste management as circular economy as an environmental issue or as an environmental aspect, but also as something that affects health and safety and well-being of people, especially women. So this panel discussion demonstrates how we should have a linkage between climate change adaptation, circular economy, talking about health and safety and well-being of the people. And one of the most outcome aspect that came out is that we need to advocate for gender-based impact assessment. It should be mandatory when we are implementing environmental project like circular economy project. So panel discussion 4 was also, when we talk about circular economy, when we talk about waste management in Namibia. Namibia is a baby. It's a baby when it's come to circular economy. When you talk about waste management, we are still learning. We are still seeing waste as a cleaning issue. So we also wanted to look at, when you talk about inclusivity, we should look at rural communities, because most of the time we view waste as an urban area issue, but it's also a community issue in terms of Namibia. As I've said, Namibia's tourism sector is community-based. Most of the communal conservancies that are being celebrated across the world, they are in communal conservancies. They are the one that host these lodges there where the tourists come. So in the communal area, they are being faced with a waste management issue, and they need to look at circular economy initiative, because a lot of waste is being generated throughout or via the tourism routes. And we wanted to come up with a panel discussion that discuss how can we approach this. And under this panel discussion is where we had, the outcome of looking at polluter pay principle, so that some of the revenue that is coming from the tourism sector can be used to fund circular economy initiatives, so that it can deal with waste management issues in the communal area. Because in communal areas, we do not have a municipality that is dealing with waste. So it belongs to nobody. When lodges are using wastewater, they likely to put it in the rivers where the rural people are drinking. And this is the initiative that we want to look at. Rural communities need to work together and being pulled in into the circular economy discussion. So who have attended our expo? We've had good attendance from the ministry and government bodies, the hospitality and tourism sector, the mining, energy, and oil and gas sector. They were attendees instead of being participants, because I think most of them, they are saying they wanted to see what the discussion about. And throughout talking to them, they realized that they made a mistake from not participating because they thought we will come and point fingers at them. That is, the conversation was more neutral. So we had people from the art and creative industry, as well as from the manufacturing and waste, as well as the institutions. So now let's talk about the outcomes and impact at the national level, at the community level, and at the policy level. Who have endorsed us? Let's look at that. So we endorsed one of the most transformative support and endorsement that we got was from the office of the president. The president has, she has, Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah has expressed how circular economy is close to her heart, and she has sent us the Minister of Urban and Rural Development to come deliver the keynote speak on her behalf. We have also received endorsement from the Minister of Urban and Rural Development, Minister of International Relations and Trade, Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, from the Governor's Office of the Commerce Region, from UNFPA, as well as the National Radiation Protection Authority. However, I want to highlight this. When I'm saying endorsement, I don't mean financial support. So everybody on this page did not give us financial support. So it's only the Rosing Uranium that have given us financial support. However, their endorsement really transformed our expo because most of the private sector joined us after these endorsements were given to us. So when I talk about political support, the Minister of Urban and Rural Development, Honorable James Sankwasa has motivated us and say this expo should be replicated throughout the country. It should not be just based in the city or the capital city of Namibia, but it should be village by village, region by village, region. So it's a really good speech, the keynote speech that he gave it to us, and we were really motivated. While the governor of the Commerce region, where the capital city of Windhoek is found, have said this is a very important expo and it should be replicated, especially when we have funding coming in for pilot project like the waste buyback centers. What is our expo's impact by number? This expo was attended by more than 500 attendees, something that we thought would not happen because it's first of the kind. We didn't know if people really understand, would really people come, but we saw 500 plus attendees per day. And we had 26 exhibitors. We also have 11 technical presentation from institutions like Bank Windhoek and 5 youth-led enterprises who came to present their ideas on circular economy. How can they be supported? So this expo was implemented with zero public funding. And also under this expo, we have identified very important waste streams that can bring high value upscaling in Namibia, which is the tires, the cooking oil, the e-waste, plastic, and glass. And we have also produced an extended producer responsibility framework or recommendation that we are fast tracking in 2026. So, what are the changes? What are the visible outcomes after this expo? So far we have received perhaps 10 emails, from youth, from the private sector that are calling our export team. They want us to help them to create concepts so that they can venture into waste to value businesses as well as upscaling initiatives. Okay, we also have seen more discussion on green financing and climate action, as well as increased media and public awareness when it's come to circular economy and waste management. Currently in Namibia so far, there's been already perhaps 10 cleaning campaign currently just this year after the expo. However, as much as we want to see us cleaning the country, we also want not to see waste just as a cleaning issue, but also something that can create opportunity. We have also seen circular economy webinar and policy dialogue. One of an example of a waste to value business that actually was birthed through the expo was the Shalom Plastic and Glass Recycling Enterprise in Lutreth, which they are currently working on producing bricks for building cheaper housing So our expo had impact at three levels: the national level, the community level, and the police level. Uh, So as much as we have now implemented the expo, we wanted to look at our impact. We wanted to look at the M&E. What we are seeing, is it really actually true? So we wanted to hear from our stakeholder. So we have actually just launched our expo impact survey this week. And so far, our stakeholders are saying 73% noticed more circular economy discussions after the expo, while 50% stated a new initiative, or joined a partnership. And they rated this expo as very important, and they would want to have a second edition this year. So most of the influence topics that they have seen is the extended producer responsibility, with many of people in our country didn't know what an extended producer responsibility was. The plastic levy, most of the people didn't understand what was the plastic levy. We just go to the shop and you are paying $2. I've seen people complaining about two. Why am I paying for the plastic? They didn't really understand why are you paying for the plastic. That's why now it came to the issue of saying, now if I'm paying for the $2 for the plastic, the environmental revenues that is generated from, where is it going? So after the expo, I would also want to be pleased that I've been appointed as to lead sustainability, green growth, and the circular economy under the office of the governor of the Commerce region. This might not be sound something big, but it's big for me because the office of the governor works under the office of the president. And I think it's giving me now that I'm already translating the expo recommendation into government policies and creating new projects on circular economy that can be funded under the office of the governor. So, as I've said before, since our expo, Namibia have seen so much discussion on dialogue on circular economy, new initiatives are being discussed, and stakeholders are more comfortable to meet. Because even if you look in one of the picture here, when the invitation was made, people didn't want to come together. They didn't know who was pointing whose finger. So we feel like the experts created that conducive environment for the stakeholders to start working together. And I think we are ready now to take over the circular economy. So let's not avoid the question: can circular economy work in developing countries like Namibia? Yes, of course, it will work. But learning from our expo, for circular economy to work in Namibia, it should be endorsed and supported from the high office or from the competent authorities like the Minister of Environment. If we do not get support from the appropriate ministries, perhaps even from political bodies like the office of the governor, it might not work. So it's very important to have political will from the top, and we can see how it transformed our expo. It will also work if we have the right people meeting together, okay, so that we can discuss the way forward when it's come to circular economy, or when we have projects that where we have the right stakeholders that are working together. As long as it's very important, Namibia is one, it's actually having high employment rate. So it's very important when we push for circular economy, for it to work, we need to have local innovators who are funded and mentored. And we have also learned that without political support, without stakeholders working together, even the best policies will not work. Even if there are those that would want to fund us with technology, it will not work. We will just have a project that will end up in pilot stages. So, as I've said, it will work, but it requires patience because we have so many systematic gaps that will not disappear overnight. And it will also requires people with a willingness to fail and work on it until it works. And as we say, countries like Namibia or developing countries like Namibia continue to experience funding challenges. However, expos like ours is also a case study or a lesson that we prove it can be done with zero funding or less funding. We continue to learn that in Namibia or in developing countries like Namibia, it's very important to start with collaboration, and then you can bring in technology. Because if you bring in technology where people are not working together, where people do not understand what is happening, what is circular economy, it's something that we've learned, that we need to start with collaboration. Trust is the best thing, especially when you're implementing policies like the plastic levy. We need to include the informal sector. Countries like Namibia, we are relied on informal waste pickers who are not integrated in the formal system. So it's very important that they are integrated in the formal system in day one, and also link waste to jobs and livelihood. We have also learned that speaking about circular economy or waste management without linking it to livelihood, jobs, or economic value, it's not sustainable. Stakeholders are not willing to put their time to work on things that do not bring them economic value, as well as policy without transparency will fail. This expo has also taught us that we can start small and prove our value. Because when we start this expo, we didn't have any foundation, we didn't have money, we didn't have done similar work before. So we have learned that now that we have started small, we have proven our value, and we have also secured political endorsement. So at the end of the day, I want to talk about what almost broke us. When you were going through this process, this is one of the process that really impacted me mentally, physically. I lost so much weight because, for an example, we wanted to cancel the expo. I think in October, we had it in November. In October, one of the big stakeholders, I think, is NIPDB and most of the government institutions. First of all, they had given us commitment, and they came back and said, you know what, we can't commit to fund you anymore. This is the first of the kind. We don't want to fund something that fails. So at the end of the day, we were left with nothing. Our initial budget was 1 million. We had the meeting, we changed it to 500,000 Namibian dollars. And then we came back and reduced it to 100,000 Namibian dollars, which is approximately just 5,000 pounds, and probably at the end of the day, it was less than that because because we had SMEs, we were working on projects that we were working on. So we used that money to fund the expo. We used our personal savings, especially for printing t-shirts, paying the photographer. So we needed to pay from our personal savings. We received some few in-kind contribution, but it was not easy. At the end of the day, we thought if we cancel this expo, our idea will die, and we didn't want it to fail. And we also thought that maybe somebody will take over. If we don't do it, somebody else will do it. So why can't we just do it? So we did it on a limited budget. So based on everything that we learned, what the stakeholders have told us, we are now planning for Expo or second edition in 2026. That is going to happen on the 5th and 6th of November in Swakopmund in Erongo region. Erongo region is a strategic location because the region is a mining hub, is the industrial hub, fishing industry, manufacturing, and it's also where the tourism sector is strong. When we are talking about North Communal Conservancy, because this is where the desert meets the sea. This is where most of the tourists go. So it's that strategic position that region that we have chosen this year, and also because of what our motivation from the Minister of Urban and Rural Development, who said circular economy should be replicated beyond the city of Windhoek or beyond the capital city of Namibia. We should do it village by village, region by region. So this year we are doing it in Erongo region. We are targeting more than 1,000 attendees per day. We would want to have more than 26 exhibitors like the one that we had last year. We want to have more youth and SMEs attending this expo because we have high unemployment rate in Namibia in terms of the youth, and we would want the youth to venture in green, businesses like in circular economy. So based on the lesson that we have learned, we realize that we have some new pillars that we need to add. For an example, standards and quality assurance in circular economy. Now we have people that are thinking about creating products that are coming from waste. But we need to look at the quality assurance. Are they safe to be used? Which is something that we need to discuss with the Namibia Standard Institution or NSI this year. We have also added the financing the transition. we need to have the green financing more accessible, especially to the public, as well as SME growth tracking. So, what do our stakeholders want to see in 2026? Some of the points that they've given us is carbon credit education, how they work, and carbon offset. These 2 points really just bring out that stakeholders are now or companies are now start to think about how can they link waste issues, circular economy to climate change, to offsetting greenhouse emissions. They also want to see more investors. They want local and international stakeholders. And this is also something that I've also want because, as I've said, Namibia is a baby and would want to learn from other African countries or European countries. Countries like great things have been done in Kenya, in Ghana, in Nigeria, South Africa. They might have different waste streams, but it would be really great to learn from them. So I would really want to hear from you. What is the biggest barrier to a circular economy in your country? Is it finance? Is it policy? Is it public awareness? Is it infrastructure, technology, or is it something else? And which lessons from Namibia, or maybe something that you can relate to that is applicable to your own context? Is it starting small? Is it transparency and trust? Is it collaboration, or is it something else? So I would really want so many stakeholders to join our movement, especially this year. Please share. We are open to listen to your circular economy stories. If somebody want to partner with us, or you just want to attend, or give us some ideas, or we are open to learn, and get all the inputs that we need. You can also follow us on our Instagram page, on our Facebook and LinkedIn page. And Eva have also shared
Yes.
the Expo Impact Report in the chat. So if you'd want to now look at our Expo Impact Report, you can read it at your own time.
Yep. Maria, thank you. I've just launched the poll question, the first poll question. I'm going to end the poll question, so I'm not sure if you can see the results on your screen.
Mhm.
So public awareness has received the majority of the responses, followed by policy and enforcement, infrastructure, finance, technology, and collaboration are a tie. But I'm not sure if you can see the results of the poll question.
No, I can't see them.
All right, no worries. But yeah,
Mhm.
public awareness and policy and enforcement are the biggest barriers.
Okay,
Um,
great.
do you want me to launch the second poll question?
Yes, please.
Yep. Could you go to the slide first? Yep, perfect. Yep. The second poll question is also available on your screen, so please do um, share your responses. For those selecting the last option, which is others, please feel free to mention what others would mean in your context in the chat box. All right. Again, sorry, Maria, I'm not sure you can see the responses, but the top response is start small and prove value, which is 53%, followed by there's a tie between include informal actors and linked waste to jobs and other economic values, which is both at 40%.
Right.
Um, and then we have build multi-stakeholders platform as well as transparency and trust, both at 13%.
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you so much, Eva. So I'm hoping, believe that the lesson from Namibia can help other developing countries build circular economy model of their own. So I'm hoping, or as I can see through the poll answers, that this expo or this initiative as can be a case study for other developing countries that would want to start small and build their circular economy models. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. And just give me one moment, please. I'm just going to share the impact report in the chat box with everyone.
Great.
But before we begin the Q&A session, please feel free to send your questions in the chat box, and we will try our best to raise as many or address as many as we can in the time that we've left with. Um, I would also like to share or say thank you to everyone who have sent your questions in advance via the registration form. What I can do is I will start with maybe one or two questions from there and then move on to the questions in the chat box. So please do take this time to send your questions in the chat box. Maria, if you're ready for the question, I'll start with the first question from the registration form. Um, as a Commonwealth scholar or alumnus, um, this is the alumnus who has sent the question. They have observed that many circular economy entrepreneurs operate in isolation despite facing similar regulatory, financing, and operational challenges. Are there any successful models from Namibia or elsewhere that facilitate structured peer learning in your experience, or mentorship or collaboration among circular economy startup founders? And how can Commonwealth alumni contribute to or benefit from such ecosystems? And I know you've mentioned in your presentation in Namibia, it's still circular economy is still a baby. So I'm sure you've had your own share of challenges. So what has your experience been in terms of structured peer learning or mentorship and collaboration?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because something it's also something experience what we have learned through our initiative is that, for an example, through when we were at the event, there's a youth or there's the youth that was presenting on turning tires into furniture. He was presenting and he was saying he was in partnership with City of Windhoek. And the officials from City of Windhoek were there and they are saying, no, as from the waste management who are dealing, who will have to give you access to the landfill, we don't know about it. You see? So through then during that expo, they ended up talking to each other and now they are working together. So I think platform like this would be a great way to mentor, to meet those that are in similar, business, like you. And the stakeholders have called for a platform where they can link with different waste suppliers and who is doing this and who is doing this idea. And we have been doing this year. We have been having stakeholders that are calling us that are saying, I want to talk to that render drum. And we were giving them the ideas and talking to each other. And it's also our vision to be able to create a platform where especially the youth or people who are in similar business to in circular economy to mentor each other and help each other and work together, collaborate.
And have there been any good model or strategy that you followed for circular economy?
Currently, as I've said, Namibia is still a baby in circular economy, and we are working on this every day. And through the expo, we hope to come up with, a best model that can work for us and for any other developing countries. Hopefully, for this edition and this year, 2026.
Mm, great.
Mm.
I'll look at the other question in the document. So, did you also, how can we address the culture of consumerism inherent in economic systems that prioritize infinite growth? And how do we manage the tension between individual gain and the social good, especially in contexts where governance frameworks struggle to balance the both?
Hmm, that's interesting. Um, as I've said, or looking at it in a sustainability perspective, The only way we can balance is that we, as I've said, policies are struggling. We need to have our policies working. We need to learn from the policies that failed so that the new ones that we are developing, we will not repeat the same thing. For an example, we talk about the plastic levy in Namibia. The plastic levy is working, the plastic bag levy is working in Namibia in terms of people paying. For an example, plastic packaging is paying 1 million per month to the Minister of Environment. But where is this money going? So perhaps sometimes it might not be that it's a thing of people benefiting from themselves. Sometimes policies are working. It might just that the outcomes that are coming out. Is there any clear link to any benefit to the communities?
Mm,
Another part that I've seen that have been published recently is that the president of the Republic of Namibia is trying to make social corporate responsibility and corporate social investment as mandatory because currently it's in voluntary, so that those that would just want to benefit can be now mandated to do it by force.
Thank you so much for your response. Just looking at the next question. What capacity building initiatives should local governments and research institutions undertake to enable the effective implementation of circular economy practices?
Mm, Capacity building should start with initiatives like ours, of course, and initiatives that have local context. So waste management or for a circular economy to work, we shouldn't just look at the upper stakeholders. We should look at the general public because these are the ones that are using every product that we use every day. We should also look at now starting from the design point of view. When manufacturers are designing their plastic or their bottles, they should also now start looking at design that favor circular economy. And I think one of the statements that we have learned or we have picked up from the Expo panel discussion was the managing director at plastic packaging said the plastic bag levy had helped them to change how they design for recyclables. Now they are producing plastic that can be recycled than before. And also, initiatives should go as deep as to community level, rural areas. Schools should be integrated in school curriculum so that it can start, or kids should know this from, early as they grow.
Mm, mm. That's a good tip. Thank you. Um, One last question from the registration form, and then I'll move to the chat box. What is the socioeconomic viability of developing and using locally engineered economic models in developing countries rather than adopting models designed in developed countries?
Can you please repeat that again?
Yeah, sure. What is the socio-economic viability of developing and using locally engineered economic models in developing countries rather than adopting to models designed in developed context?
Mm, okay, I think it's actually that's a very great question, and when we use models that are more local, have local context, it means they answer to the local needs. Because the waste streams that we have in Namibia and how we generate waste or how we work with circular economy might not be how they do it in Europe. Is for an example, currently Namibia has been just um, funded or the first pilot study on waste buyback centers. Okay, even me myself, I'm still learning through that model, but it's perhaps something that came from not from developing countries. So it's really important to have models that are informed by local context that answers to the local needs because we have unique uh, circular economies solutions or unique waste management issues. And it will also
Definitely.
allow to speak to generate or to support livelihood in such a way that is local context.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good tip on making use of the local resources as well as skills and capacity. All right, so maybe one question from the chat box before we end the Q&A session. Could you please give an insight on how informal actors were successfully involved in your case study?
Thank you so much for that question. So, we had the city of Windhoek has informal waste pickers that they use occasionally. So we have invited them to attend at the expo to see how important they are in the value chain, or what contribution do they make when it comes to circular economy and waste management. And through my appointment under the office of the governor, I'm currently implementing a project or improving the project on waste buyback centers so that it can formally integrate the informal waste pickers into the system.
But I think with that we come to, or there's one more question, just one last question. Um, do you monitor the carbon print of the entire process, and if so, how?
Currently, for the 2025 Expo edition, if perhaps the question is based on our initiative, not
Yeah,
as a country, no,
yeah,
because as I've said, sometimes we prioritize local need. What do we need now? We needed people to understand. We didn't have the budget or the team to extend to more than that. We were just more focusing, and we hope actually a good question, and we hope to put that in our list for second edition this year.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, well, with that, we come to the end of the Q&A session, and we are on time with closing the webinar as well. But we do have the post-webinar networking session. So if you can please go to the next slide just to show or share your contact details. Um, I have also shared Maria's contact details in the chat box, along with her social media handles on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, about the expo. Um, if we can go to the next slide on the post-webinar networking session. Before that, thank you so much, Maria, for your wonderful presentation. And I'd also like to thank everyone who joined us today. um, I don't know, Maria, if you had a chance to just go through the chat box, but we've received some really positive feedback about your webinar. So well done on sharing your work with the CSE community. Any final words before we end the webinar?
No, I just want to thank everybody for listening to me, and I'm hoping that I would also get a chance to learn from other countries and how they can help us improve our initiatives and our transition to circular economy. As I've said, Namibia is a baby in circular economy, and this is the first initiative of the kind in the country. So I would really love to receive input from you. There's my email, asec at promotingsustainability.com. You can also inbox me on LinkedIn. Just type in Maria Shimhanda, and my account should be able to come there. So I really thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to uh, networking with you further.
Thank you so much, Maria.